Here, is that better?
Oh, yes, that's much better.
Okay, let's try that. So hopefully that gets everything going. How's your year going so far? Good?
So far, so good. It's off to a good start. New things. So this is one of them.
Yeah.
Excited. So tell me your name and tell me who you with and what you do and how long you've been doing it.
Okay. So my name is Adeel Amin. I am currently with a company called Compass Mortgage. We are a direct lender, and I have been doing business, residential, commercial finance for well over 15 years now.
Okay, good. So I have you here because I want to talk to my audience about what it means to flip. That seems to be what a lot of my clients want to do. And I want to go over all the pitfalls and obviously all the joys
Yeah.
of what flipping can do.
Yep.
So I think a lot of us were introduced to flipping from watching HGTV and
Yeah.
watching Tariq and Christina. One day they find a property and by the end of the show it's sold,
Yep.
and that ain't how I go. So let's talk a little bit about hard money lending and what that means.
Okay. So flipping and hard money lending kind of go hand in hand. A lot of these guys that are online flipping properties, I mean, they keep calling them banks.
Mm-hmm.
And, I see a lot of these flipping shows. My wife is crazy about the flipping shows. So, I mean, that's all that we have on is Joanna Gaines and flipping Chicago and flipping Waco, Texas, whatever, all those fun things are. And they keep talking about banks and banking institutions, but banks typically do not lend on flips. In fact, for the last 15 years, the most common phone call that I get, and I get it all the time, is, hey, I want to get a line of credit to go flip houses, right? Somebody essentially wants a bank facility that you can write checks out of and not pay very high interest rates and draw upon it as you need it. I don't know where that comes from. And nothing like that has ever existed that I know of. Okay. So the best thing that I can start off in addressing with your viewers is to live in the world of what's possible and not what someone that's promising you something online, I mean, there's so much garbage, right? And in our world, the financing world, a lot of people they're really not true financiers online. They're usually marketing companies. Lending Tree does not lend anything,
Right.
right? Similar to Lendio. I don't know if they've changed their models at all, but all of these organizations are brokers, and essentially they're actually marketing companies. So a lot of what you're seeing is coming from someone who, maybe does not have that background in funding things, or they're kind of used to making matchmaking between connectors. So the predominant form of funding in real estate, which is not mortgages, right, comes in the form of hard money lending. And it sounds really bad, hard money, but it's really a bunch of investors that are just like me and you, that will give a loan based on the, physical fire sale value of a property and potentially give you a loan based on the after repair value of a property, which is kind of what we see a lot in fix and flips, right? So that is, and they're surprisingly aggressive, right? It's not, 15 years ago when I first started doing fix and flips financing, it was, you used to go to California and people had you put down 40%, 50%, they would give you interest rates of 12 and a half, 14%, charge you 5% on, and collateralize it. I remember I got into this thinking, oh my God, I'm going to do so well. I know everybody that wants to fix and flip. And I'd wind up submitting in like 30, 40, 50 people, and I'd maybe get one approval on a hard money financing. Well, it's come a long way. Okay. Now you have specific investors that have, pooled their funds. They've created larger organizations. And now fix and flip financing is frankly a lot easier. I mean, anybody can get it, right? So the way it happens typically is that you have people that want to do residential,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have commercial.
Right.
And the line in the sand is a 4 flat.
Right. The
Okay.
amount. Right.
Right. So if you have a 5 flat, it becomes a commercial. And if you have a 4 or under, it's residential.
I see.
And
One question for you. Um, when you're financing anything above a 3 unit on the residential side, if you're going with FHA, do you have to have reserves as well when you're doing the hard money lending? Like for each unit, like you have to have reserves twice the amount of what the rent would typically be?
so those are typical mortgage guidelines, right? When we're talking about Fannie Mae back-based loans, right? So that's FHA,
Okay.
right? So we're talking about hard money. That hard money is not FHA.
Okay.
So FHA has got one program called the 203,
The
203K.
3K. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So that is essentially ground up construction and reconstruction, remodeling and acquisition, it's
Sorry for another time.
it's a lot of paperwork,
Yeah, it
right?
is. Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
Getting something ready to go and so on. And we can do it. I mean, all day long. People do it for ground up construction. It's a wonderful product, right? I mean, it's great. But borrowers that are trying to fix and flip typically don't like submitting, onerous amounts of information, their firstborn, their blood type, what they had for coffee that morning, all that stuff. So hard money lending, it's basically based on two or three things. Okay. Number one, it's based on your previous experience.
Okay.
Okay. You can be a rookie, but you can't be a rookie that just put up 3 dry walls in your basement, watch Chip and Joanna Gaines flip a home, and now you're like, I can do this. That's not what that is. A rookie is somebody who actually is showing some wherewithal that they know how to construct a project together. They have a general contractor. They have different types of people that they've worked with before to do some sort of remodeling, right?
You have to have a team in place with a proven track record.
Correct. So at the very, very heart of that is somebody that is a general contractor. You got to get somebody who is actively licensed, at least in Chicago-based properties, that you are going to work with. If you don't have that, and you want to do the whole thing yourself, then lenders are going to ask that you are putting up more money.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a good segue. So typically, what are the requirements for credit and your down payment, things of that nature?
So credit is kind of, in the way that general lending works is that we do everything based off of algorithms, right? There's no one behind the wheel anymore, right? It hasn't been for 15, 20 years. It's not like someone's taking a look at you going, Tonia, I love your pay stubs and W. We're going to get you home. None of that happens, right? It's shoved into this goofy algorithm. The algorithm goes, well, based on 100 million other people that look just like this profile, here's all the things that we need to go ahead and do, right? And that's a good thing because it avoids discrimination, right? There's algorithms don't care what your background is. Algorithms don't care. They just need you to fit into a box of how much money, your credit, your income, and you're good to go, right? So it's actually a good thing. With hard money lending or construction fix and flip financing, now you're dealing with investors, right? They still go off of a variety of algorithms, but they're not as stringent as what is your credit? What is this? First thing that they're taking a look at, like I said, is the background. Second thing they're taking a look at is how much of your own money are you bringing into the table? Okay. So I'm going to keep the numbers simple. And, we live in Chicago, so these are going to be like nothing numbers. Okay. If you're buying a property for 100 grand, okay, and you want to put down, or you have approximately a $50,000 renovation budget, okay, which means that you're going to go ahead and be into the property. I'm going to do a little quick calculation here. Oops, let's go here.
Price is 100 and the repair budget is 50,000.
50,000. Okay. So the first metric is that the property's comps after repair value have got to hit a minimum of 230,000.
200.
Okay. Correct. So you add the 100K plus the 50K, and you divide that number by 65%.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the first barrier. That kind of shows that you know what you're doing.
Okay.
Okay, that hey, there's significant after repair value profit in this for everybody to make a buck.
So
Okay,
the markup value has to be at least 65%.
65% loan to value after repairs.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so the entire cost of the project. Of that 150,000, you have to either bring in 10% as your purchase price
Hmm.
or 10% of the renovation budget.
Okay.
Okay, one of the other, and it depends on the property. It depends upon your background. If you're a true green rookie and you've never done this before, that obviously goes up,
Mhm.
right? Hey, we're happy to give you a majority of the money you need to flip, but you need to show us that you know, have got a good team. Yeah, some skin in the game. You know, you're willing to go and bet some of your life savings on what you're trying to do. So
Right.
it becomes it becomes something that you go ahead and take care of yourself, right?
Right.
So that is the default. Typically, from what I've funded here in Chicago, that seems to be what everybody's funding in Illinois. Okay,
Okay.
is that combination, and then from there they get into, hey, let's take a look at your background. Obviously, you can't have any felonies, right? You have a clean criminal record.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then the second thing that you really need to go ahead and have is making sure that you have a decent credit score. You can't be behind on payments. You know, you can't be like losing your home and your cars and, you know, about to get repossessed and, you know, small minor collection bills here and there nobody really cares about. But, you know, as long as the meat of your credit profile seems like you've got your act together, I
Okay.
think you're okay. So it's 650, 640 scores are perfectly doable as long as you're not owing anybody any, you know, large collections and there's not, you know, 100 lenders after you. You're
Okay.
okay.
Okay. So it's safe to say about a 650.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Am I going too far into depth into this, or I mean, is this
Oh, no, this is
just the right
perfect.
detail? Yeah. Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So about 650, about at least 10% of the purchase price of the home is what you bring into the table. So if we're going off your example, so that's what, 10,000, then they got to come to the table with.
At least $10,000. Right. Right.
So let's talk about numbers for a moment. So we're in the acquisition process.
Mhm.
We identified the property. We ran the numbers. We like what we see. Um, but we run out of money. You know, and that can be and this is the serious, this is what people really need to understand at this point, because timing is everything when it comes to your general contractor, and your projects can be made or broken by your general contractor. So in the event that money is ran out, and let's say we are 80% to completion. We're 80%, you know, completed of the work. What happens now?
So it depends upon why the money ran out.
Okay.
Okay. And typically, if you're working with someone like me or working with somebody like you know, where we do this a lot, we can take a look at a budget and tell somebody that's fresh, hey, this is not going to work.
Okay.
Okay.
Before you get to that point.
Before you even get started. Okay. So the most common reasons why money runs out is because you went in the project, and you'll see this all the time on these shows, right? This is where all the drama comes from. And this is 100% true. Something is wrong that is underneath.
Exactly.
Pipes need to be fixed, right? There is an HVAC system that has got black mold all over, you know, the inside of it, right? It'll never pass inspections. Your foundation's cracked. There's a reason why it's on sale for less than 50% of the value for it's not because it's, you know, this perfect property where you're going to do what we call a lipstick and put on a skirt and it's going to be
Exactly.
fantastic, right? It's most of the properties that you're going to flip is kind of a gut job, right? I mean, they take out furniture, they remodel kitchens, we change around the configuration of things, bring old school styles of, you know, especially in Chicago, you'll see, you know, I love going to Chicago. It's like walking down 1910. You know,
Got it.
all the old buildings are the same way, right? So you go inside there and some of these older properties that are located in these areas, and you'll see that they are dilapidated and, you know, very, very old. You walk somewhere, you know, put your foot on the staircase and the whole staircase creaks, right? You notice that, right? I mean, so it's stuff like that that, you know, obviously is going to get you into problems. So if in your scenario, if we run out of funds because something was grossly underestimated,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that comes out of your cut.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the best way to think about it. Is
Okay.
that the lenders may give you the money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it does. You know, they obviously want the property completed.
Right.
Okay, and either they may ask you to go 50-50 on the additional costs, or they may front it to you. But whatever that is, it's essentially coming out of your dough. That's the lender that's get paid first,
Right.
right? When the property sells,
Exactly. So it's coming out of the bottom line
right?
of the proceeds. So that's good to know that that there's some recourse in terms of being able to um, borrow against what your future earnings could possibly be. Essentially, is what you're saying, correct?
Right. I mean, there's different ways out of it. I typically don't run into these scenarios very often because, you know, the people, like I'll give you a great example. We're trying to convert a property that is in Chicago right now. It is a former monastery,
Okay.
an 8-unit monastery, and we're trying to convert it into condominiums.
Hmm.
Okay, that's an interesting little construction project. The person that's on the project, I took a look at their budget, and the first thing I said was, "This is not going to work." You know, you don't have a reserve budget. We're talking about a building that was originally built in 1945, and there's no reserves in here. You need to put at least a 5 to 10% reserve on a complete gut job that you're going to do for stuff that we don't even know,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that changed around the dynamics of the property. That changed around how much money they were looking for and how much money they had to bring to the table and all that stuff. Now, this was an experienced, I think she's done like 50 of these already. So a
Mhm.
very experienced individual, didn't have a problem taking that into account. But if you're a rookie, that's intimidating,
It is.
you know?
Yeah, it is. Especially like you said, being a rookie, this is your new, I mean, your first time doing this particular type of project. So if you are working with someone who is new at doing this, what type of properties would you recommend that they start out with?
I would tell them, you know, to stick with things that you know and
Hmm.
stick with the neighborhood that you know.
Okay.
Okay. It's much easier to get success off your backyard than it is for you to go into a completely different zip code on the other side of town that you don't know anything about, and you're going to have to go ahead and model it out of, you know, comps.
Right.
If you can make a strong case, you know, for why you're flipping that property internally, it makes you a little bit better because a lot of the problems that you have inside properties, you know, they're usually built by the same people,
Hmm.
right? So when you see a new subdevelopment happen, it's usually built by the same 2 or 3 developers, and they usually have the same 2 or 3 problems. And the assessors have actually already seen all of them. The inspectors have kind of already seen all of them. So if you're doing your due diligence in your own backyard, talk to one of the people that goes out and does all the inspections. Ask them, hey, you know, we're thinking about really getting into this property. What should I be looking for as an issue? And you'll get a pretty good. I mean, a lot of, you know, we always think of these guys as being, we can't talk to you, but they'll tell you, you know, if you're not talking about a specific property, they'll tell you very easily because nobody likes talking to inspectors, so they'll talk all day. You know, so they'll tell you about the things that they have found in specific areas. If you just genuinely go up there and go, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm about to go take a flip of this property. What do you think? Have you encountered any issues with this particular developer? What should I be looking out for? Good idea to go do your homework. And
I,
that's why it's, yeah,
I agree. Two things. Two
yeah,
more. One, what happens, and I just recently experienced this when a deal I closed on in January.
yeah.
The, the broker that was representing the seller who was doing the flip, I was representing the buyer on the transaction.
Okay.
overestimated the comp value of the property. So
Mm.
when we got the God, why am I having such a major brain fart here? uh, the appraisal.
Yeah, there you go.
The house was listed at 196. The appraisal value came back at 188, 181, something
Okay.
like that. So, and the turns out the comps that the broker was using, and I won't name his name, well, he was just using the recent sales of the community and not the actual comp of the property. So it was like a single family house that was like a ranch style house with no basement, was on a slab.
Right.
So it was a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. This particular, the comps he was using were all 4 bedrooms with basements and 2 baths, which I don't understand like why he would do that. And so the appraisal value came back, based off the type of house that it was. So my question is, when a broker like myself is working with an investor and they're looking at properties and they're estimating ARV value, which is after repair value, do you guys go back and research to make sure that the numbers that the broker is selling the investor is correct, or are you taking the broker's word for what the ARV value is?
So the investors have their own internal individuals that they work with, right? Their own ways of verifying information. But, if you're an investor, as in you're the person buying the property, you're the one doing the flip, right? If you're the flipping individual, you want to make sure that you really, especially on your first one, that's why it's important to concentrate on the geography, right? Like the comps, for example, I'll give you an example of what the pros do, right? They'll have 4 areas that they know really, really well, right? And they know every shop that's going in on the street. I'm not joking, okay? To the level of detail that you know. They know, for example, how quickly this is a person that does 100 of these, and I'm telling you what they're looking at. They will tell me exactly when all the restaurants are about to open up on the street after COVID. They know the date. Okay, so for them, they're that particular about knowing the area. In real estate, they say it's location, 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 right? It's also knowing everything about that location.
Okay.
So if you are out of your neighborhood and you're now, you live in Elmhurst, and all of a sudden you're going to go and do a fix and flip of a property in Schaumburg, right? And you haven't seen what has happened in that area. Okay. Or you haven't researched what's happened in that area. You haven't seen that, zoning of something changed, or a lot of people with, bigger homes have been selling their homes left and right. Right. I mean, you kind of hear about these things when you're hanging around Schaumburg a lot is, hey, maybe this may be happening, right? Not saying that it is. I'm just throwing that out there as an example. And now suddenly you're doing a flip, and then you get caught in something like that where you're like, oh, wow, well, the broker estimated this to be great and the investor did great. It's your rear end that's on the line, right? Because you're going to lose everything. The investors will be fine, right? Investors can go ahead and take title to the property again, and they can come in there and get it out, but you're going to lose your entire investment. Right. So it's important ideas to kind of get to know some of that. So if you're in the middle of where, the comp values are grossly overestimated or underestimated, and you're out of your comfort zone, I would greatly recommend, before putting an offer in, of going and hanging out in that neighborhood for a few hours at the very least, talking to people, trying to figure out what's been going on here, property values, seeing how many foreclosure signs there are, how many things are listed in those specific neighborhoods, typical stuff that we all do to figure out how many listings are in the area and so on, right? To kind of give you a pretty good idea of whether or not a valuation of 350K or 400K is going to hold, right?
Right. Those are good things, because a lot of people don't CYA. They don't cover their own ass when they just take the broker's word for it, and they're very trusting. They don't run their own numbers. I mean, what other than the MLS, because that's what brokers like myself used in order for us to do our calculations off of comps. but as a consumer, they don't have access to the MLS typically. So what websites would you recommend that people can use in order for them to try to do their own empirical data search?
So Redfin for me is a fantastic website. Okay, and Zillow is not bad either. I just don't go off of their values.
Okay.
Okay, that's the first thing to kind of avoid, is because all those values are based on, it's like a Zestimate or a
Mm-hmm.
whatever they call it on Redfin.
Right.
You and I both know that's not how we estimate values, right? Yeah. So, when appraisers take a look at your property, generally they're taking a look at two or three things. Number one, what's sold for in the area at the asking, and then what's foreclosed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How long has inventory been kind of hanging around? That's the other thing that I take a look at. When you take a look at Zillow, for example, number one thing is, okay, this house has been on the market for a while. Was it adequately priced? You
Mm-hmm.
know, like everybody else is asking 300, but this one's asking 450. Okay. Um, okay, well, that's a little aggressive. Well, that's interesting. That's the house been on the market. How long has it been on the market? And then you suddenly see that it's been on the market for 95 days, which is an eternity in this time, in this area, right? And then you'll see it kind of being taken off and being put back on, which,
Right. Yeah.
realtors we do to not show that, something's been marked down. If you're due diligent about your own neighborhood and you're taking a look at some of these pricing, and you're really thinking ahead, hey, I'm going to do 3 flips this year in
Right.
these 3 neighborhoods. Those are things to take a look at in the price points you're looking at. Is, hey, if I was to flip this and I made this into this $250,000 home, into this $500,000 home, how long are the $500,000 homes actually sitting on the market?
Right.
Is there that? Are they coming? I mean, so you kind of have to have a feel, and you can do a lot of this sitting on a computer.
Yeah, definitely.
15 years ago, you'd have to walk out there and write this down and come back and so on.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, the last part to this question is we have made it to the completion of the project.
Yeah.
Now we're ready to put the property on the market. Now, do we do an appraisal on our end, or do we wait for the buyers to do the appraisal?
So if you're working with me, one of the main things that I do is I try to get you into sell mode. You and the realtor that's is obviously in your case, Tonia, yourself. If you're representing a person, is I want to get you into a formula that I know works.
Okay.
Okay. And the very first thing that we do is we say, okay, let's go ahead and as soon as your first construction funding is funded that day, as the investor, as the person that is buying the property, I give you a homework assignment, which is I want a picture done nicely of what this thing is going to look like in 60 days from now, the completed picture. Okay. And then what I do is I ask you, Tonia, to go ahead and post it as a listing
Okay.
that day.
Oh,
Okay.
listed as
Coming soon.
got it.
Right. And early buyer discount of 10%,
Oh wow.
5%, whatever it is. Okay. Being a direct lender, I do quite a bit of, I don't lend on myself on investment properties. I can find funding for people, but as a direct lender, one of the main things that I do is anybody that comes to us from that listing without an appraisal, without even a purchase contract, I can underwrite the entire file.
Mm.
Okay. So anybody that comes in that's a buyer that is interested in your 10% as an offer, 5%, whatever it may be,
Okay.
is you wind up saying that, hey, qualified buyers only, right? And we qualify them fully. So all that they're going to be waiting on when the property is finished is an appraisal and a housing inspection, and we fund them.
Got it.
Okay. That is the way to move that stuff, especially if you're a rookie, really, really fast, because you will, yeah.
That's a
So
good strategy.
it works, and because you want to get into, by the time you're doing your first one, I want you to get into your number, already thinking about number 2, number 3, number 4, right?
Right.
Because that's how you're going to become a builder. That's how you're going to become a flipper. Is, hey, okay, what did we do on the first one? Let's kind of take a look. What went wrong? What went right? Let's already start on working on number 2, number 3, number 4, right? Ready to go. because the financing from the first one should be able to get you into number 2 and number 3 and number 4
Right.
relatively quickly.
Right.
Right. So if you have a formula, which is, hey, I'm putting this in and I'm putting this out right away, and then you're going to town and you're having, people come in and ask questions about it, and we're qualifying them, we're giving them a full approval, not just a pre-approval, a full
Right.
approval. We underwrite them up front. They go ahead and do an escrow, give you an earnest money deposit. They can even open up a purchase contract upon completion.
Okay.
Okay. So that the minute the property's finished, they get their discount.
And they get the
We
walk.
do an appraisal and they go ahead. I mean, you'd be surprised as to how quickly these properties sell on the market. And you're not giving up that much money.
No, 10% is not I mean, it seems like everyone likes a discount. That's why I like to list properties with the last number being 5.
Yeah, everybody does. It's true. There's psychology for it. I love it.
Exactly. Okay, my last question was commercial. I mean, not commercial, but new construction lending. As we live in Chicago, we know in certain neighborhoods there are, plethora of vacant lots available and dilapidated properties that can use some sprucing up. So how different is it to do new construction versus a flip per se?
So flip is typically a property you're not going to live in.
Right.
Right. It's an investment property. New construction is it's a little bit more involved, right? Because there are, anything with a government loan in front of it, FHA, VA, anything like that, you're going to have a lot more paperwork involved with it.
Well,
Not saying it's not doable.
Right. But as relation to doing, like, let's say a 3-unit, something like that. If we were buying a vacant lot, let's say in Woodlawn, for instance,
Yep.
and on a residential street, and we're looking to build maybe a 3-unit building, for instance,
Yep.
like what would a consumer be looking at, an investor be looking at to make that come into fruition?
So depending upon the scope of the project, the down payment kind of varies depending upon, which final investor, and by investor, I don't mean the private investors now, I mean the banks that are actually going to fund you, that are going to take a look at, right? You do have to have quite a bit of skin in the game, right? You do have to come in there with at least I would say, a starting point, somewhere between 5 to 10% down, if not more, right?
Okay.
Depending on the problem. I'm giving you kind of the low side, some of them are a little bit higher. And then from there, it becomes, it becomes a distribution on, what kind of plans you have, what you're kind of going to be doing with the project. It all has to run through. It all has to be approved, just like a construction project is.
Okay.
And then once the lender approves the project and they're ready to go, then they close on the lot, we break ground, and then they start dispersing the funds to you, in milestones. Milestone 1's completed, milestone 2 is completed, milestone 3 is completed, and so on. Right. It's something that is involved, and it does tend to, I mean, we can spend another half hour on this thing about going into it. So I just want to keep it kind of surface level, but it's, if you want to go and be in your own property, and the number one thing I can recommend is, if you're doing something ground up construction, is to make sure that you have some reserves and you have, some skin in the game. You can't get those at 3.5%, 5% down. I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, Adeel, I really appreciate your time today. It's been great speaking with you. I'm going to link your contact information in the description box with this video. So if people are interested in working with you, they can contact you directly for more information what we covered today. I'm certainly going to use you, so I'm looking forward.
Love it. We're going to use each other. It's going to be great. Tonia, thank you so much for having this show. I'm so glad you do stuff like this. There's so much bad information out there. And so if we can just get a chance to kind of educate people on how to do this correctly, there's the real estate market's going to be hot for the next 2 to 3 years. Right?
I think so too. Yeah, especially on the rental side. So we see a lot, especially with this climate that we're coming out of with COVID. I'm really excited to see, what investment opportunities are going to be available for investors to get involved in. So, well, thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Tonia. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.